The 7 Years' War was in many ways the First World War. It involved many different countries, was fought over 5 continents, and had around 1.4 million casualties. The two main sides of the war was French, Holy Roman Empire, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and the Mughal Empire on one side, and Great Britain, Hanover, Prussia, and Portugal on the other. This war was mainly fought for trade and control of the land of the New World and around Europe. This war, like I said earlier, is one that is very widespread, so we will only be covering the European theater today. It started with the death of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV. After his death, his daughter Maria Theresa took over the kingdom and all the areas it owned. King Frederick the Great of Prussia contested her right to the throne and declared war. Prussia had France, Sweden, and Spain, while Theresa only had Great Britain, led by King George II. But that wasn't enough, and their militaries were defeated, and Frederick took the province of Silesia from Austria, one of the territories owned by Theresa. This was known as the War of Austrian Succession. It lasted from 1740 to 1748. The war was ended with the Treaty of Aix-les-Chapelles, which gave Prussia full control of Silesia, but did nothing for France, putting Frederick the Great on King Louis's bad side, who was the leader of France at the time. As well, Theresa's ally, George, had used her army as a defense against an attack, and had been telling her to just give up on Silesia. And with that, the two sides switched. Theresa went to France's side, and Frederick went to Great Britain's. Around the time of 1756, Theresa wanted to get Silesia back. King Louis wanted France to rival the power of Great Britain, and in addition, Queen Elizabeth of Russia, who wanted to take Prussia. The three united and were going to attack Prussia. Frederick knew that it was coming, so to make sure that he was not surrounded on all sides, he took over Saxony, but was not able to push forward and take over more land due to the lack of help from the British, who were dealing with the war in the Americas and pouring all their money into that. Prussia was beginning to falter. They were able to stop the enemy forces from taking back Saxony, but they became surrounded. France was coming at them from the west side, while their attempts to invade Austria were pushed back. Sweden saw how Prussia was becoming weakened and wanted to take back some of their territories, and Russia was pushing their eastern side. It appeared that Frederick's luck was all out. In 1759, the combined Russian and Austrian forces pushed into Prussia, and it appeared that Prussia would be defeated. But the Russians and Austrians didn't take their chance in what Frederick called the miracle of the House of Brandenburg. The reasoning for this was that Frederick had defended his capital, Berlin, with everything he had. The two forces felt that their communication lines were beginning to be stretched too thin, and Frederick's brother, Prince Harry, had not taken any casualties yet, so the Russians and Austrians saw that it was too dangerous, and by September they were retreating their forces. France had to clean up the mess left by Russia and Austria, but France had spread itself too thin. To put things into perspective, British and French ships could be found fighting all over the world, from India to the colonies. France, however, had spread themselves so thin, and their forces were so divided, that they suffered on all fronts. But with Frederick getting off the hook, he still could not go into enemy territories, so all he could do was defend. Yet Frederick's luck did not fail him, and Queen Elizabeth of Russia died to health complications, and was succeeded by her nephew Peter III, who was a fan of Frederick, and with that he signed the Treaty of St. Petersburg, which took Russia out of the war, and a little later Sweden also surrendered. But in 1762, Spain entered the war under the rule of Charles III. Their main target was Portugal, who had never entered the war, and all the attacks on them made by Spain were repelled easily. France made one final attack against Great Britain using their naval fleet. Britain sunk the fleet before they even made it to shore. After so many battles, the French were finally defeated. With that, Frederick only had to fight Habsburg, which he was easily able to defeat. After that, the war was resolved with the Treaty of Paris in 1763. The 7 Years' War is a long and arduous one, even down to the name, where you could technically say it lasted 23 years, or how in America it's called the French and Indian War, or in Portugal, the Fantastic War. It was a fight for the rule of new lands and a want to either restore or build up one's empire. This war led to many different events, including the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Without those two events, the world would be a very different place on a fundamental level, with cultures and how Europeans spread throughout the world. This is the war that kicked the world into a new era, either for better or for worse.